I've been very excited and very nervous about this. Oh my God.
Yeah, me too. And I'm like years older than you.
So it doesn't change, does it?
It doesn't change. Not doing this sort of stuff, honestly. Uh,
Okay,
so what are we doing here, Ashraf? What are we doing?
so my name is Ashraf. I have been a writer since I was 11 years old, but I still haven't published anything because I have only recently really started to put in the effort and the focus to do what it takes to do what I love, which is to write. And Tracy here, who, I'll ask you to introduce yourself in a minute. You suggested that we should start this series of just talking about topics related to writing and our relationship to it and our relationship to each other. And I think that people will find our dynamic very engaging once we market this properly.
There you
So,
go.
why
So let
don't
me
you go
tell you a
ahead?
little bit about why I think it's a good idea. So
Yeah.
I've been writing since I was very young, which is a lot more years than you. But I only really, I mean, I had published things like in magazines and poetry and articles and work-related issues. But I only really started writing novels probably around 2011. And
Mm.
I only started publishing around 2014. So I have at the minute three series on the go with a standalone that I'm writing plus another book. And I have both self-published, well, I've self-published, I've hybrid published, I've tried all sorts of publishing, you know. But one thing that somebody said to me, and it was over 10 years ago, and this is why I think this is important for you, is start your diary. They said, start now on social media, start your diary and share it with everybody. But me being a social media introvert, which it may not come across, but I am social media introvert. I thought, why would I do that? Why would anybody be interested in anything I have to say? Turns out I was wrong, didn't do anything, and you're right.
I mean, I just think that kind of content works. They usually say don't meet your heroes, but I completely disagree with that. You are definitely like a hero and a role model to me, and it is such an honor to be doing this with you, honestly.
Oh my goodness, you don't need to say that. That's quite embarrassing. If I was doing that, I'd do that flapping thing, but I'm not. I'm not that sort of person. But
Okay,
thank you.
why don't we tell people how we met? I think you should start with the story you said last time. It was really hilarious.
Oh, so I lived abroad for a long time, working abroad. One of the countries I lived in was Egypt. I lived there for 10 to 12 years, a long time. So I mean, it was great. I loved Egypt. I love everything about, different cultures. But I was married, not now, but was married to your uncle. And we came to Cairo. We were working in another place, came to Cairo, and I met this little boy of about seven or something. And I must say at the time I wasn't that good with kids. I had a little boy, but I'm not that good with kids. So this little boy thought I would be ideal to practice my English on his English on. And so he came and asked me every single question that he could practice. And it was like, hello, what's your name? My name is Ashraf. How are you? How old are you? Where are you from? And he kept coming back to me and saying these questions, and oh, it was really nice of him, and it was really cute and stuff like that. But I didn't know what to say after a while. But you didn't give in. You just kept coming back to ask the questions. So that's how we met.
I don't remember that interaction at all, but I assure you, I am still that person.
Oh dear. So, good
Uh,
morning, Ashraf. How are you? How are you feeling?
I'm doing quite well. My name is Ashraf. I'm 24 years old. I'm from Cairo, Egypt. I remember doing my IELTS, and I was such a menace to the speaking instructor guy who was testing me because I went into it thinking like, oh, it's just, an English test. I didn't really know that there were specific standards, and he kept asking me all these questions about colors and trees and my friends, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't. Um,
Oh,
so the earliest interaction I remember between us, I don't remember that happening, but I remember meeting you in Saudi when you were there, vaguely, very vaguely. I remember running around with Adam at some point and being at your place and taking a picture with him on the couch. What I do remember is when I was 13 and I started developing corruptive and my mother suggested that I send you in the first scene. It's really cool because I think you're the only person ever to have seen the beginning of the book in the very first version and where it is now. You know what I mean? And I
And I
remember the
have to
call we had.
say, I admire your persistence and I admire that in your head is this amazing world and this fabulous world that you've created with all these amazing characters. And I really want you to finish the book.
Me too. I feel like I owe it to them at this point. And I kept like starting over and over and over again on it since I was 13 because every time it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel like what was on the page aligned with what I wanted to say until now. You know what I mean? Um, I remember that call we had when I was 13. Again, vaguely, but I remember moments from it where you were saying like, "Oh, this part is going on too long," or you don't need to use all this flowery language, or something about blondes. I called someone a blonde, and you
Yeah,
brought
yeah.
up,
And it was hard because you were only 13. It's like, how much do I, you know,
do I rip into this child?
what do I say? And also, your language was developing. And I think part of it was you were trying to put so many words in that I kept saying, no, you don't need to take this word out. Too much description. You know, you're trying to use all these big words.
I didn't really understand what writing was about back then, I think. I knew I wanted to do it. I knew I love it more than anything. I can't not write. You know what I'm
I,
talking
I,
about.
I, I understand that totally. I
Yeah.
have the same thing. If I don't write for a little while, I start getting fed up and I think, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with you? Oh, I need to write
Exactly.
something.
I know. It's like everything just suddenly starts to feel so small, and I start to feel so small, and then I start to
That
feel like one
lack
of
of
those normal
purpose.
people.
Yeah.
Yes, one of
It's
those
a lack of
average people.
purpose. Oh,
Exactly. Um, and so this is why I persisted and I kept working on it, and it got to a point now where I realize I don't need like always use the simplest word possible when applicable.
yeah, and I love talking about writing, as you know, and I love talking about books, and I love talking about openings. So these are all things that other people would just look at it and go, why do you find that interesting? Why is that? But it is. It's a passion, and that's why we get along so well when we talk about writing.
I agree. I remember being like 16 in high school and reading an entire book about punctuation and commas,
Oh gosh.
and it was the most interesting thing ever.
Do you know, people think it's mad. I like grammar. I like the intricacies and the details. I've taught grammar to people, because I do also teach classes about writing and other stuff. But I've taught grammar to people, and I'm probably the most enthusiastic person in this room.
But here's the
Ah.
thing. Nice. So what really pulls you to it? How did you discover that this is what you love when you were younger?
So I was probably at school, and in fact, I'm collating a lot of my different writing from over the years. But I have I didn't save this. My mother saved this. I have probably the most memorable poem still from when I was about 10 years old, and
Wow.
it was about. I've got several to be honest, and several pieces of little writing that I did, but it was about my brothers being male chauvinistic pigs. So that that sense of my brothers got away with everything and I didn't. I had to do this and they could sit down. Oh, it's a whole story. But anyway, so I still have that poem and that got published in a newspaper in Leicester because my grandfather at the time lived in Leicester and he took it to a newspaper. And it's a funny story only in that my elder brother was a little bit jealous, so he wrote a poem, sent it to the newspaper himself, and said, "I know you published my sister, and I don't expect you to publish me, but I'm not trying to better her or anything." And they published his as well. I think they just found him cheeky.
So he proved your point basically.
Yes,
It's
yes.
just like free marketing.
And we still have it. We still have the image of what he sent in as a letter to the editor, and that was years ago. Anyway, that was at school. I think at school, if you are encouraged in something, if you love something, then it stays with you. And it stayed with me. I wrote all the time I was in Egypt, I was in Saudi Arabia, I was always writing something. And the times that I didn't write, I think in my mind, they're not years I remember, which is really strange. But I have writing
Mm,
from different times, and the way it's almost like writing a diary when you're writing because it shows you the time that you were writing about as well. I have letters describing scenes in Egypt. It's and as much as that's my writing, it's like I look back and it's like a different person.
mm. Because
So what was
you
your
remember
question?
who you
Yeah,
were.
so I can go on and on. What was your question?
I was just asking about how you answered it perfectly about how you discovered your love for writing and how you started to do it. So it's basically been a part of who you are for as long as you can remember.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Mm.
Um,
And reading. I've always loved reading. So words. I tell you, I don't know. Totally different thing. I only discovered a few years ago that people don't always see the same way. I know people with a visual and people see images, but I see words in my
mm,
head. So if you imagine a word and somebody says, "How do you spell this?" I see the word. You imagine it just here in front of my. I can see the word. I see words. I spell very quickly because I see the word, and I don't know.
mm.
And I ask people that question, like, "Do you see words in your head, Ashraf?"
I don't. I'm like a
It's
completely visual
interesting.
person. And that makes so much sense of like for example the other day when we were looking at the scene and you said I know what you're trying to say because for me it's the image, but because you see
Yes.
the words, you know how it needs to be phrased.
Yes, and I do see images, and of course, when I'm writing, I'm seeing the images of what people are doing and how they're acting. But when I'm looking at something or assessing something or evaluating a piece, I see the words, I see the flow, I see the connections as well. But when somebody asked me to, and I didn't know that in my mind somehow, when people spelt, they would see the word in their head because I did. There's a
That's incredible.
a little nothing for you.
I don't have that at all. That's the part I struggle with. That's why sometimes when I'm looking for the right word, I'm just like staring into the image, looking around, on the walls anywhere. That's really incredible.
But the words don't, no, don't get me wrong. The words that when I'm writing don't come to me always automatically. It's not that they just pop into my head. No, I'm just talking about c- not many people that I've spoken to, maybe loads of people, have actually said they see words in their head.
I
And
get you.
like,
Yeah.
that's very
I
odd.
don't. That's incredible. Um, so I remember loving reading as well for since I was a child. Um, but I started writing when I was 11, actually. Before then, whenever we had like a writing assignment for school, I was always that one kid who took it way too far. And I never shut up about my opinion. I still don't. It got me into a lot of trouble, especially in religion classes, but that's a topic for another conversation. Um, so I remember very clearly having my iPad 2 when I was 11 and just going on the App Store and looking up Write because I wanted something, and Wattpad came up. Have you heard of Wattpad? Yeah, back when it was usable. So I logged on, and at the time, being an 11-year-old in like 2012, Minecraft was a big thing. So I realized that there was a massive writing community that was my age on Wattpad who write Minecraft stories. They create their own characters, and then you
Wow.
put your friends'
Yeah, yeah.
characters in your stories. It was like a whole thing. And one of the people I met on there is still one of my very, very good friends to this day. Like we still share our writing and talk all the time. But I remember going on there and starting this massive 13 book series set in Minecraft. And I asked people to I got to know people and I asked if I could include their characters in my story. And sometimes we'd pass around, what we were doing with each other's characters. And one person would be like, "Yeah, we're going to the Nether," or we go into the jungle, build a tree house. For me, I'm like, so you die and come back as a zombie to psychologically torture your friends in the next book. Trust me, it's for the plot. I just had I was 11 and I had people like being eaten alive by spiders. It's just there's a lot of like messed up psychological stuff in there. I
Oh,
only
that's
got
really funny.
yeah, I only got up to like the ninth book in that series, but I still remember the whole plot of all 13 books, like moment for moment.
Oh. That's amazing. The fact that you were planning at that age a whole series of books, that's actually really amazing. I think mine was like short stories. I was writing short stories, but to be in that world so much that you could plan that out. I think you do a lot of planning, which we can talk about in another video. Um, but yeah, that's really, really, I didn't know that about you. That's a new story.
It's I think like a big part of it was an escape from a lot of things that I was going through at the time. But ultimately, I think it put me on the right path and helped me through the characters and situations I put them through, process things that I was going through, and really understand who I am and where I stand on things better. You know, like I have always been the type of person to ask why. Why are you trying to have me believe in what you're telling me? Convince me. You know what I mean? And it really showed up in my writing. At some point, I was even the creator of the game Minecraft. He was like the main villain of the series. And at some point, I started to like popularize in the story, so I was the characters were going out to hurt him basically, and then I was told to stop doing that because I would get in trouble.
So you mixed real life and Minecraft
Oh
game and
yeah.
brought them all together. See, that's a
Oh,
great
yeah.
imagination. And it's funny because they've created films like that now where people go into the video games. They've actually done it. You were
I
ahead
was
of your
years
time.
ahead. I was years ahead. I was 12. But
Brilliant.
then I started working on Corruptive in the, YA era of Divergent and Hunger Games, and it's developed ever since, really, to where it is now. And it's grown with me, I would say. So,
I think Ashraf, what you don't realize it when you were younger, you were writing in a second language. It
mhm.
literally English is your second language, and to me that was impressive anyway. That you were a young person writing in a second language. I was so amazed that you could do it.
My generation we have a very interesting relationship with English because we grew up with the internet and we grew up with a lot of American influence. So you'll find that a lot of us use English more than our native language, especially in Egypt. But there's always a large element of criticism that comes from it, that comes with it, especially in Egypt, from my experience, where if I speak English properly, everybody automatically assumes that I don't know how to use Arabic well, which is a very, 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 very strange thing, but also very Egyptian in like the judgment
Well,
element of it.
actually, I do remember being in Egypt, and there was a concern that people were losing Arabic because English was an international language, and they were teaching it in schools because people needed it. But that the basic, not even the basic Arabic, that the Arabic wouldn't be written. There wouldn't be stories in Arabic. There wouldn't be writing in Arabic because the younger generation were, yes, they could speak it, but they couldn't write it as well.
True, there wasn't, we weren't given interest in the language. They didn't help us develop it at a young age. And for me, my interest in Arabic comes from my love for reading and writing, but not because it was built into me. Like I was in senior year in high school, and there were kids in my class who couldn't even recite the Arabic abjad, who didn't know all the letters. Can you imagine?
Aleph,
It's
bet, te, the, gib.
exactly,
I learned that. That's what
exactly.
I learned that alphabet.
They wouldn't be able to say it, and then they're blamed for it instead of the education system that
Yes,
spent
yes,
more
yes.
time telling them to be afraid of. Yeah, let's not go there now.
Another story. That's another day.
Exactly.
We'll park that one right over there.
But
All
yeah,
right then. So this is a beginning. It's a beginning for us. It's a beginning of sharing stories. It's a beginning of learning, and hopefully people will find this interesting.
I hope so. I'm really excited to see where it goes. This has been really fun, and I definitely feel a lot less nervous now that we've spoken. What
That's
about
like
you?
I've come to the end. I think we do well together. I
I
think we do.
agree. I agree. I
I think
agree.
I think it's just the passion of writing coming out, to be honest, Asha.
That's why we need to like we're putting this out for other people who feel the same way, other people who've got stories to tell, other people who want to put poems about their brothers in newspapers. You know what I mean? We just need that push.
Yes. I think and I do a lot of that work anyway. I go into schools, I go into colleges, and I talk to people about writing, and that passion comes through writing and reading because I think that's really important.
I agree. I agree. I agree. I always say to myself that reading reminds me how big the world is, and writing reminds me how big I am.
That is lovely. I do like that. That's a good way to end.
Yeah.
All right then. Bye bye.
Bye bye, everyone.